is my first food vlog. And because it's my first one, I'm going to make it simple. I'm going to do apple tart. And one of the reasons I'm going to do the apple tart, outside of being simple, is I had a young guest named Brandy who wanted the recipe, and all I could do was to give her instructions. So this is for you, Brandy. Now in your package there are 2 sheets, and I'm only going to make 2 today, so I'm going to divide it up. And they come frozen. So being as I'm just going to do 2 today, the tarts come in 2 sheets, but they come folded in thirds. So for 2, I am going to snap off 1/3. Typically, I put this in the refrigerator overnight to let it thaw so that I can prepare it for the morning breakfast. But for the demonstration, I'm going to leave it on the counter to thaw. And I'm going to wrap the rest and put them back in the freezer, because also, as being a bed and breakfast owner, I don't like any waste. The next step is slicing the apple. First of all, you want to core it. Wrong end, the right end would be helpful. And just give it your strength and get the core out of there. Usually for 2 tarts, 1 apple is plenty, but sometimes, depending on the size, it could be a little short. So to be on the safe side for this demonstration, I'm going to do 2 apples. Then you're going to cut the apple in half. Remove any remaining seeds and gunk. These could be hand sliced, but I'm going to use a mandolin. If you decide to do a mandolin, please be careful, because they can be very dangerous. I like using the mandolin because it gives you nice even slices. But if you're not comfortable with a mandolin, please don't use it. And I start with my hand, but you don't want to get your fingers in the way. And once I get it down so far, I'll use the guard, because I would rather waste some apple than to have my flesh in there. You see how nice and even these are? Even pulling it out, you've got to be careful, because you think your fingers are clear, and next thing you know, they gotcha. The puff pastry is thawed. I just turned my oven to 400. It's a good time to start this, because you want it hot by the time you're finished. And I'm going to sprinkle a little flour. And as I said, this is enough for 2. So I'm going to fold it in half and cut it evenly, or as close as you can. And then, because I want it a little more square, I'm going to start with the short side to me. And just, you might want to flip it over so it doesn't stick on the top on your rolling pin. And it doesn't take a whole lot. You don't want it too thin, or you may end up with a soggy bottom. And you don't want a soggy bottom. Then you just transfer your square to your parchment paper. That is the best investment, the best invention in the world. I just love this stuff. It saves me a ton of time. So I'll roll out the other one. I try to keep it as square as I can, but it doesn't really matter. This is a recipe that's very forgiving. And I'll put this one on the parchment paper as well. And then take a knife, a fork, something, and just dock your pastry, which is very easy. This is so that it rises more consistently. This one looks like it'd be stretched out a little more. And this is where the fun is, the creativity. My apple slices are here. And I typically start in the corner and do it at an angle. You want enough apple, but not too much that it gets too soggy. So there is a pretty even balance there. And I just arrange them to my likes. And everybody is amazed how pretty they are. From what I understand, and I've been to France, you do see these in most pastry shops. Although their chefs may start with make their own puff pastry, but I've heard American chefs don't, because it is a lot of work. And that package that I showed you earlier costs about $5. You can find it in the frozen section. I find it by the dessert aisle, in the dessert aisle of the frozen section. In fact, I always have it on hand, and I've gotten to the point that I watch my dates and rotate them, because I don't want things, spoiling. Like I said earlier, being a bed and breakfast owner, you want as little spoilage as possible. And then we got a little hole up here, so I'm going to stick another one. This one looks a little light, so I'm going to throw a few more apples on it. And this is where you just kind of judge it and play with it. And I usually use regular sugar, just a sprinkle, but today I'm going to do cinnamon sugar. It's the same ratio that you would make cinnamon toast, and you just sprinkle it with the sugar. Again, you don't want it too heavy because you don't want it soggy. And get a little bit on the crust too, because it makes the crust nice and tasty. And then you just dot it with some butter. Again, don't get too heavy because you don't want it to end up too soggy. And the more you make it, the more you can kind of figure out and gauge how much butter. Of course, my thought is always that you can't have too much butter, but in this case you really can. And I've been wanting to experiment with little things like cream cheese underneath, and I'll let you know how that turns out when I get brave enough. So now it's ready to go into the oven. Well, it's been 35 minutes, and she looks browner than usual, but I know that that is because of the cinnamon that I put on top of there. And this is what it looks like out of the oven. I just drizzle it with the little store-bought caramel while it's still hot. That gives it a chance to get all melted in. You could top it with a little bit of whipped cream if you wanted. And I do 2 courses for breakfast, and this would be a first course. And my first course is typically a fruit and baked good, or like this, a fruity baked good. And then I have the savory second course, but this is my apple tart. Oh, I was going to plate it for you so you can see how pretty it looks on the plate. And so there is the French apple tart. Now the test is going to be in the crunch and the flavor. This is easier if you cut into it. See how crisp the sound is. And if I were on camera, you could see me take this bite. Actually, that's too big of a bite, even to speak on camera. That is good. Nice and buttery, sweet and appley. I do hope you try this. If you do, let me know what you think. You can also follow me on Twitter, Facebook. My website is www.amiestjeanbedandbreakfast.com, and my blog is blog.www.amiestjeanbedandbreakfast.com. There's a place on my blog that you can make comments, or you can email me. That's on my website. So I hope you try this and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks.